I call this meeting to order. This is the May 25th, 2022 regular meeting of the Schertz Capital Improvement Advisory Committee. Item number 2 is seat an alternate if required. It's not. Item number 3, hearing of residents. And those of you that signed up, we start with the Capital Improvements Advisory Committee. We'll get through that meeting, then we'll come back to planning and zoning. So if you're signed up and you want to speak about Capital Improvements Advisory Committee, I've got 3 names here. Are any of you for CIAC or all for P&Z? All right. So we'll just press on. Item number 4 is a public hearing. Hold a public hearing, consider and file a semi-annual report evaluating the progress of the city on achieving the capital improvements program and identifying any problems in implementing the plans or administering the capital recovery fees. Who's up? Welcome.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Williams, the Director of Public Works for the City of Schertz. And I didn't prepare a presentation. We can speak to it. It's pretty self-explanatory, but it's actually an exciting time for our plan. We have both water and sewer impact fees. They're going towards our water and wastewater master plan and impact fee studies. We expect later this year for those master plans to be complete, and then after that we'll begin on the impact fee study, making progress on that. The water, for water impact fees, the Corbett ground storage tank, that is building a momentum. We are going to bid next quarter, so we'll be moving from, right now you're seeing costs associated with professional services, and we're going to be moving into construction costs for that. We are using sewer impact fees for the Woman Hollering Creek wastewater plant. That is actually under construction, so we're seeing progress on that. That is scheduled to be complete in early 2023. For roadway impact fees, all of the areas we have put towards actually professional services to incorporate areas that we have annexed. We do have some coming out of Service Area 2, and that's for our annual reimbursement for Rips Chrysler. One thing that is new that I wanted to bring your attention to is that the City of Schertz received $3.5 million grant to use towards the Corbett ground storage tank. So that's pretty exciting for us. So what we have done is we're going through our projects to make sure that if we have other projects that can be considered for the impact fees, and that's to ensure that we spend the impact fees at the appropriate rate. So just want to ensure you of that and tell you the good news about the $3.5 million grant. Do you have any questions that I could answer?
All right. Well, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Members, anybody have any questions or comments about the report from, looks like October 1st, 2021 through March 31st, 2022?
Mr. Outlaw?
Yes.
With it being a public hearing, if you want to...
Yeah, okay. My bad. Sorry. Okay, it is a public hearing, so anyone that wishing to address the committee on the quarterly impact report, feel free to step forward. There's the usual stampede. Okay. No one wants to question the report. All right, we'll close that public portion. Now, committee members, anybody have any questions, comments? A lot of numbers. No offense, Suzanne, but I really liked it better when James was here.
That's all right.
Would walk us through it, but that's okay. So. All right, if no one has any questions or comments, again, this is, we're recommending to City Council, correct? Yes. So we're looking for a motion to recommend either approval or disapproval of the quarterly report to City Council.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend that we Recommend approval of the submitted report for the Capital Improvements Advisory Committee.
I'll second.
All right, that's Mr. Jones, correct? Okay. All right, I have a motion to recommend approval from Mr. Odom, a second from Mr. Jones. Any other discussion or comments? Call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, that's 6 in favor, none opposed. That motion passes. That concludes the business of the Capital Improvements Advisory Committee. That meeting's adjourned. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Appreciate it. And with that, we'll open the May 25th, 2022 regular meeting of the Schertz Planning and Zoning Commission. At, let's see, I've got 1806. And we have no alternates again for that. All right, item number 3 is hearing of residents. Now we have 2 public hearings on the agenda tonight, and 2 of you have indicated you'd like to speak about those issues, and then we have a 3rd person on another one. But the way it works, you signed up to speak under hearing of residents, and you're more than welcome to do that. You are also entitled, when I open the public hearing to public comment, you're also entitled to speak during that time. So typically we give you an option. You can speak now and then, or you can wait and hear the presentation and then speak during the public hearing. It's really up to you. So the first person, I'm sorry, I really, D or anyway, you're 311 Hunters something. Would you like to speak now, sir? Very well. And Daryl Jinsky at the presentation. All right. And Bradley Bechtold. Well, no, no, you come on up because your topic's not a public hearing, so.
And I'm not really talking about that anyway.
Okay.
So I just wanted to say a few things about Chris Price to you guys and express some things to y'all. My name is Bradley Bechtold, and I've been working on the Crossvine with Chris for the last 12 years. And as most of you know, Chris was the developer of the Crossvine, and he passed away unexpectedly about 8 weeks ago. And so I feel like I owe it to Chris to speak for him to you guys. The Crossvine was the pinnacle of his professional career, and he was exceedingly proud of it every day. And every day he would also tell me that we've only been able to achieve what we were able to achieve because of our partnership with the city. And he was proud of the Crossvine, but he was really, really proud of that relationship too, and the guidance and the input and the work that we all did together. So I know Chris very, very well, and I know that he would never want to leave this world without expressing his gratitude to the commissioners, past and present, to staff, to city government, and to the people of Schertz. So I just felt like I needed to do that. I also wanted to let you guys know that I want to assure y'all that the Crossvine team is going to remain the same, that nothing is going to change at the Crossvine. Planned Environments, the original planner, will still be the planner, and the landscape architect, Jesse Malone, will still be the engineer. Our attorney will be the same, who writes all of our entitlements, and I will be moving into a management position. I'll be taking over Chris's role as president of the HOA. So it's all the same people who've been here for 12 years who have developed and pushed forward the city and Chris's vision, and we are doubly committed to making sure that what has been done, what is being planned, and what is planned for the future is done to those exacting details, and we'll push every day to make that happen. So that's just what I wanted to tell you. Thank you for your time.
All right. Well, thank you, Ms. Bechtel. I'm sure we're all going to miss Chris. I know I'll miss seeing his face in the audience, and I started working with him quite a while back as the fire marshal, and it's been quite a journey. And we didn't always see eye to eye about things, but somehow we managed to work them out. And again, I certainly appreciate your comments. Thank you. Item number 4 is the consent agenda. We have a single item on the agenda tonight, minutes for the April 13th, 2022 regular meeting. Commissioners, do we need to pull that for discussion? If not, can I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
All right, I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Ray. Do I have a second?
Second.
And a second from Commissioner Goldick. There's no discussion on the consent agenda. I'll call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. 5 ayes, none opposed. The motion passes. Item number 5 is a public hearing. The Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing related to zone change requests and replats within this agenda. The public hearing will be open to receive a report from staff, the applicant, the adjoining property owners affected by the applicant's request, and any other interested persons. Upon completion, the public hearing will be closed. The Commission will discuss and consider the application and may request additional information from staff or the applicant if required. After deliberation, the Commission is asked to consider and act upon the following requests and make a recommendation to City Council if necessary. So what we will do, we have two public hearings this evening. As each agenda item comes up, we'll receive a briefing from staff, and if they desire, the applicant can make a presentation. At that time, I'll open the meeting for public comment, and you're all invited to come up to the podium and address the Commission. Please state your name and address and try to limit your comments to 3 minutes. All right, 5A, ZC 2022-010. Hold a public hearing, consider and make a recommendation on a request to amend the comprehensive land use plan by changing approximately 22 acres of the future land use map from the agricultural conservation land use designation to the multifamily residential land use designation. Generally located 1,100 feet west of the intersection between FM 482 and Hubertus Road, also known as Comal County Property Identification Numbers 401-272, 273, 75375, 75237, 75246. City of Schertz, Comal County, Texas. Ms. Harrison?
Good evening, Commission. Megan Harrison, planner. Just wanted to give a quick, just kind of informative, is that with the P&Z only being a 5-member commission, that you would need 4 affirmative votes to move a item forward. So just wanted y'all to keep that in mind for the agenda items on the P&Z agenda tonight. So this is for ZC 2022-010. This is the FM 482 Comprehensive Land Use Plan Amendment. Here is the property outlined in green. This is a 5-parcel property. So the first one being here, a smaller one here, it's kind of hard to tell, the next larger one, and here. This is FM 42 and Hubertus Road, and then Danville Middle School, just for another point of reference. The public hearing notice map was mailed out on May 13th. We did receive, after the time of the staff report, we did receive 1 opposed and 1 in favor of the comp plan amendment. Here is the current comprehensive land use plan exhibit. Currently, the properties, are outlined in agricultural conservation, outlined here in this red box. The applicant is requesting that the comp plan be amended to multifamily residential, outlined here in the brown. Just kind of want to spend some time on this slide. So in the staff report, staff understands that may have been some confusion and or some questions about the infrastructure that was provided within the staff report. So when infrastructure is essentially planned, we're looking at the land uses, the zoning that is currently out there. So again, the land uses that are out there, agricultural conservation, and out there right now, as you'll see in the next presentation, is there's a lot of manufacturing light, and there are 2 parcels with this property that are zoned agricultural district. So majority of the properties within the FM 482, also along some of Hubertus Road, are the manufacturing light zoning district. So when the infrastructure was planned, it was planned for development of either agricultural or a manufacturing light. So when staff evaluated the comp plan amendment, we were providing the information of utilities not to have that be the forefront of the denial, but as far as to provide the information on the forefront for the applicant to know that as they go through the process, if the comp plan were to be approved, if the zone change were to be approved, the platting, the site plan, so on and so forth, that the building permit, there were going to be some hurdles, if you will, because the infrastructure currently right now is not suitable to service an apartment complex. So just to have some more information, currently the sewer is about 2,400 linear feet away. The Danville Middle School and the proposed elementary school that is across the street are in a different sewer shed system. So essentially what that means is that they would not be able to tie into that sewer shed system, even though there is a sewer line directly across. They would have to extend that sewer that is off the page, unfortunately, but it is further up about 2,400 linear feet. So just keeping that in mind. The water is under Green Valley SUD, so Green Valley Special Utility District. It is not under the city of Schertz. So the applicant would have to do their due diligence in getting with Green Valley to ensure that there is enough water pressure and capacity to service this property. The roadway, as we have heard numerous times in other zoning cases and or plats, that the traffic is voluminous with trucks. And so staff looked at that as well, is that, you know, when we were evaluating this, currently what's out there is a middle school, and there are several industrial projects, as you can see, intercoastal contractors, Casa Verde Farms, there is a plumbing company, as well as the Texas Cutting and Core. So there is that already industrial businesses that have kind of already set in this area, and we have already seen that shift from kind of the agricultural moving into that manufacturing light, if you will. So we've also evaluated the traffic component from that standpoint, but also the TIA that was done for the elementary school evaluated what was currently out there right now. It did not evaluate what would possibly be potentially an apartment complex. So the applicant would have to do their due diligence if the project were to move forward to do the TIA for this project. So it was staff's approach to try to inform the applicant of what is the utilities and where they are today. With the comprehensive land use plan, again, it's being that agricultural district, or excuse me, agricultural conservation, staff looked at it as that majority, as you can probably see on that exhibit, is agricultural conservation. You kind of, as you move past the Danville Middle School, you have that highway commercial, the commercial campus. And so as staff was looking at this, we have already seen, like I've said, we've already seen the shift for industrial businesses in this area, and staff felt that it was not appropriate for this area to potentially take 22 acres and plug in an apartment complex. The other reason being is that if we were to approve having an apartment complex, would this now set a trend to allow residential uses to then come into already a moving industrial area? So that is where staff had kind of made, it was a tough one. It was very tough to kind of evaluate this area, just given, yes, the schools are there. Could it have been potential for an apartment complex to kind of be there? However, given the industrial uses, given where the property is at, staff did not feel that it would be appropriate to change the comprehensive land use plan to multifamily residential. Therefore, staff is recommending denial of the proposed comprehensive land use plan amendment due to its incompatibility with the goals and objectives of the 2013 Schertz sector plan. The applicant is here to provide a presentation as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. I'm Chris Bancroft with Texas Multifamily Capital, located at 1111 West 6th Street in Austin, Texas. We're a Central Texas-based company focused on multifamily development. Central Texas is growing faster than I think anyone ever expected, and we have major companies relocating here, with some of the largest companies in the U.S. adding new facilities right here in Schertz. The city of Schertz has experienced over 40% population growth since 2010, which is the equivalent of adding over 15,000 residents every 10 years. Population growth and economic growth can bring great things to a community, but I realize that it also presents challenges. One of the challenges is the rising cost of home ownership, and those rising costs create a lack of affordable and flexible housing options for the local workforce. As stated, we're requesting an amendment to the 2002 Comprehensive Land Use Plan, amended in 2013, for these 5 contiguous parcels, or approximately 22 acres at the corner of FM 482 and Hubertus Road. Our goal is to develop high-quality, attainable, garden-style apartments in order to provide rental housing for the local Schertz workforce and families of the adjacent Danville Middle School. A couple points that I want to bring to your attention, and I apologize if I'm being redundant with Ms. Harrison's comments, but the Comprehensive Land Use Plan, of course, indicates agricultural conservation for effectively all of the land along FM 482, including these properties. The current zoning for the exact same land is almost entirely M1 manufacturing light. An extremely important item that is not mentioned in the staff analysis when it was produced to me was the fact that Danville Middle School is where it is, enrolling almost 1,000 children, which is right across the street. That school was completed in 2018, well after the 2013 comp plan amendment. Also not noted is the construction of the new elementary school going in as we speak. Our application for a comp plan amendment is being recommended for denial on the basis that the application conflicts with the desire to maintain the rural landscape and character of the city of Schertz, in addition to the comments that Ms. Harrison just made. I would argue that not much along I-35 between San Antonio and Austin today is classified as rural. That includes the city of Schertz, which I would classify maybe more as suburban, and not so much rural. There are a couple of contradictions that I'd like to highlight. One of those being that the current comp plan, which is the basis for our application being denied, is out of date, and I understand that the city is working on revising that comp plan as we speak. The second being that the current M1 zoning, which takes precedent, is contrary to the 2013 comp plan, meaning that landowners can build light industrial whenever they want instead of maintaining the quote-unquote rural landscape. I would agree that a decade ago, the 2013 comp plan made a lot of sense. However, today in 2022, I don't think anyone would disagree that we're in a completely different situation. As I mentioned, the population of Schertz has grown almost 40% since 2013. And the I-35 corridor has exploded with growth, and major employers like Amazon, Cisco, Caterpillar, and so on have facilities in Schertz with more to come. Along with those companies come their employees who need affordable rental housing. At the same time, we're experiencing skyrocketing cost of home ownership across Central Texas and rising interest rates as we speak. Not everyone can or wants to own a single-family home. In markets lacking rental housing, employees that need affordable and flexible housing options are going to seek housing elsewhere. And in time, their employers and future employers will find more suitable areas to locate their businesses. They move on because they can't recruit or maintain a workforce. Currently, there's job shortages at Amazon and Cisco in Schertz, the facilities in Schertz, at a time when unemployment is at an all-time low. Rising gas prices and inflation only make the situation worse by eliminating any incentive to commute. At the current pace of population growth, the city of Schertz is going to add another 15 to 20,000 people over the next 10 to 15 years. Rental housing is in high demand right now. There's only 1,700 apartment rental units in Schertz with a population of 45,000 people and a population that's headed towards 60,000 plus by the 2030s. If nothing changes, light industrial has a high chance of being built along FM 482 and all around Danville Middle School, and that, I would argue, is going to create its own problems, which could be avoided today. Industrial development is not a compatible land use next to a large middle school or elementary school. I did some research into the current land uses around elementary schools, middle and high schools in Central Texas, and I couldn't find a single school that had anything other than residential development next to it. Not a single school located next to industrial or manufacturing facilities. We are requesting a comp plan amendment to allow for high-density residential to provide attainable rental housing for the local workforce and to allow more compatible residential use next to Danville Middle School. That would also provide an important buffer to any future industrial development in the area. It will relieve pressure on the local single-family housing market, provide support for the retail and commercial corridor that exists on I-35 just south of this site, and provide even more reasons for the local workforce to live inside the city of Schertz. I hope the Planning Commission will reconsider the current recommendation and approve our request for an amendment this evening. I appreciate your consideration, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right. Thank you. Just a quick question. What was your name again?
Chris Bancroft.
Bancroft. Bancroft. All right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. No, we'll move on to the public input, and
Thank you, sir.
then we'll see if we have any questions. Okay. All right. At this time, we'll open the. No, come on up. We'll open the meeting for public input. Please, again, your name and address for the record, and if you would, try to keep it to 3 minutes. Appreciate it, sir.
I'm Daley Edwards, 311 Hunters Creek Drive, New Braunfels, Texas. If I may indulge, instead of speaking twice, I'd just like to speak the one time, so if I run a hair over, I'm saving you time in the long run. I'm a member of the Association of Realtors Governmental Affairs Committee. I do data research, and I'm also a planning commissioner for a neighboring community for the last 10 years, so I understand sitting in your seat. I also understand when you get a denial, it's kind of hard to go, but I'm going to try to give you some reasons why, statistically, why we ought to take a look at this and hopefully get a positive vote. Yes, your land use plan was done in 2013. You're currently trying to get it back up to standard and bring, because cities are organic. So amending your land use plan is not uncommon in most cities, especially after the second or third year, because you're just organic growth. Now, what we want to take a look at is why on this 22 acres do we think it's beneficial to make the change? And so the first area is that the schools, you had one, now you have two, they're magnets. Industrial has a tendency to be a repellent, except for industrial. We've had the same problem in our community, we've had it in other areas, but we have found through better research that multifamily is a buffer to help you with the school. So at this particular location, it sets a buffer so that the industrial can move behind it. Currently at Goodwin Lane and Orion, we have a construction of a multifamily unit, a manufactured home community, and in symbiotic use, 850,000 square feet of cross dock is being built to the other side of the apartment. And it's a buffer to two high-end subdivisions and an elementary school. Now, as you know, a lot of times when you have those schools, the things that come before you, the families get upset. You hear 500 adjectives on why it's evil, everything from pedophiles driving by the schools, and these truck drivers are transient, and if they're coming up that way, they could see their children. And the thing that the apartment does is put that buffer between it. It will alter some traffic issues, but it should be beneficial. Now, in addition, a lot of times planners want to talk about retail, commercial, and so on. We've had this property marketed for several years, and it's adjacent one. Nothing wanted to go there. We tried to get a dentist and a dentist office complex and doctor on the Cusick property. After they did their demographics and their traffic analysis as far as would they get the right traffic to it, it couldn't work, and they were denied by their demographers. In addition, retail, light commercial, C12, anything that's not heavy duty that would go against those schools, wants to build toward the interstate and closer. So really this site lends itself for a couple of things. The industrial, but it needs that buffer just in that zone to help with the schools. Now the last reason, this is one that the planners haven't been dealing with. About 3 years ago, there was a seminar, and all of the planners in the region either went to it or some of them went on Zoom and saw it, where it was saying that residential and industrial are not competitive in the new world. Unfortunately, they haven't looked at the labor shortage, and here's the big issue for you. Seguin found out painfully not having enough housing to support its industry caused it to start losing industrial interest. Vitesco, which is a division of Continental, has 238 job openings today. The other 4 major manufacturers, if you add up all their shortages, is over 450. And speaking to the Vice President of U.S. Operations, they're considering to go back to providing workforce housing and attainable housing on site in order to get the employees they need. It's critical. Now, some want to look at projects like us. We spoke with Cisco, who has 78 openings. We spoke with Amazon, who has 38. We saw some midpoints up the street from this that also have, and they all said the same thing. If they had some housing closer to them, especially apartment, because that's the type of people that come in and take some of the entry-level jobs. Your solution to workforce is not all homeowners. You have to have the rental complex to go with it. Now, in the case of Seguin, Continental owns 50 acres at the Vitesco site. They chose an Abronfel site, abandoned the excess land they owned, paid in full, and went in interviewing the U.S. Vice President, says it was all about labor, period. So this can help you with Cisco. It can help your industrial grow. It can provide a buffer for the schools. And from there, because of head count, you can get more commercial moving from 482 back up Hubertus and reinforce, so you get a bilateral growth, but still control. Last thing, and I'll finish, is that they have looked at the traffic measures. They met with TxDOT. They're willing to do the things to help the traffic control at that site, which will help when you have all the mamas and daddies lined up at the elementary school, like we do on Hoffman and several others, at those couple of times of the year, and help you with some of that traffic initiative. So I hope you will consider this item and the subsequent item and for your approval.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Jinsky?
Daryl Jinsky, 7413 FM 482. I live right next door to the Danville Middle School. And I know I speak for a bunch of our neighbors out there. We're opposed to this apartment complex. For one thing, in the last couple of years, the amount of truck traffic because of the explosion of the rock quarries and the asphalt plants, we pretty much have trucks running 12 to 14, 16 hours a day, 6 days a week, starting as early as Sunday afternoons, running trucks through there all the time. I'm amazed that we still have bicycle riders that ride over there on Saturdays and with all these trucks running. But that's beside the point. You take any time in the afternoon or any time on the weekend when I-35 gets an accident on it or whatever, 482 then becomes alternate 35. And I'm talking traffic. Traffic will back up. Trying to make that stop sign at 2252 will back up 1.5 miles. Since then, in all my life living there, the little drainage ditch that constantly floods now used to never flood. It used to take 4 to 5 inches of rain to get that creek to flow. Ever since Riata subdivision went in, now it takes a 2-inch rain and we got water flowing, closing the road off. In all my life, never ever once got flooded in until that came about. Now we get rain, the road is closed. And then they came in later and they put a retention pond in. That held for a little while, but it still floods. With all the construction going on now for the new elementary school over there, the last time we had a rain a couple of weeks ago was a 3 or 4 inch downpour. So much debris came down that creek, clogged up that 1932 culvert that's in there, plugged that up, plugged the ditches up, flooded everywhere down there. TxDOT got the contractor down there with equipment to clean the road off, but to this day, there's debris plugging up every cotton picking culvert hole. So now, if we're going to put this apartment complex there, you're going to add more water to that little ditch over there. TxDOT, on the other hand, never seems to clean out drainage ditches anymore. Why? I have no idea. Maybe to satisfy the environmentalist. But that creek used to always get cleaned out. We never had a problem with flooding. But now it is. It's a big hazard. Even when Danville Middle School went in there and they widened the road, they didn't upgrade any drainage over there. So I'm just saying, having this in here, plus the additional traffic, I'm not in favor of the school being in the elementary school, which I'm really surprised that Comal Independent School District decided to put another school there, especially when they said they caught so much hell from the city of Schertz building that middle school there. They said they'd never build again, but whatever. But I'm just saying, I approve of her denial, deny the apartment complex. We don't need the extra traffic, the hassle, and everything else that goes along with it. So that's all I have to say about that. We as neighborhoods out there are in denial of this apartment complex. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
Howdy. My name's Hollis Wooldridge. I'm at 7496 FM 482. And not to rehash everything Mr. Jinsky said, but this water he was talking about flows across our place. And it basically, if it comes in around parcel 75246, 75375, and it floods everything down to Abbey Road. And the reality is, I've already submitted a letter. I think you guys got it in front of you. And we had a truck, I think in 2017, that wound up, one of our neighbors tried to drive through. There were no barricades put up. The rain came. He tried to get to his house, and he got washed away. And he wound up in our tank, went through our fence, made a big mess. And then when they came to recover the truck, they made a bigger mess. But anyway, the point being that these improvements that are out here are fine, except that there's no infrastructure being done. There's nothing being done about the traffic. There's nothing being done about the flooding. When this last flood came here in April, the ditch that's there was closed up again, as Mr. Jinsky said. It's never been cleaned out. And so the day after it flooded, somebody came in with a backhoe and they did a bunch of dragging and they just pulled out a little bit of weeds. But our culvert is steadily eroding. We've been out there 28 years, and you know, in the beginning it took 5 or 6 inches to make it flow. Now it takes an inch. It rained last night, rained an inch. When I went to work this morning, it was not overflowing, but it was up to the top of the bottom of the culvert where the pipes are. So all this development that's across 35 and all this impermeable cover you're talking about adding is just going to add to the flooding problem. So if you're going to do something in support of this permit change, this variance, you're going to have to do something about all the infrastructure that's around it. So thank you. You have any questions?
No, sir. Thank you for your comments.
Hi, I'm Laura Wooldridge, 7496 FM 482. I write stuff down. I'm here with my husband Hollis. We've been City of Schertz residents since we were annexed a few years after we purchased our house and land in 1994. So as he said, we've been out here 28 years. We were informed not long after annexation that we were zoned agricultural like commercial. Over the years, we have watched the city grow around and accepted that if we ever did sell, it would be as a commercial property. When Kamal ISD bought out some of our neighbors, we were concerned about what impact building would have. And from the photos that my husband provided for you, you can see that drainage is by far our biggest concern. Additionally, for so many years, there have been restrictions on existing homes being upgraded, enlarged, or even replaced due to zoning on the land. It seems incongruent that now the road area land can support multi-family housing. I have neighbors whose requests to improve or replace their current homes have been denied. The city simply has not prepared FM 482 for many families to move onto it. Please plan the necessary infrastructure before you consider this request. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Anyone else? One more time? No one? All right. Public input's closed. Commissioners?
I have a question. My question is, what are the plans for the drainage issues and things like that? Is that something that would be put on to the developer to take care of, or is that a city issue?
So it's probably a couple things. Brian James, Assistant City Manager. So the developer of their property would obviously have to handle the runoff coming off their property. Primarily, when we talk about that, what it really means is if you assume the amount of flow that occurs and the rate of flow today as an undeveloped piece of property, when they develop that property, essentially they cannot increase the rate of flow off the property. So obviously the example is you've got a grassy field, you want to come in and put a big parking lot on it. When it rains now and it's a parking lot, that water is going to run off much faster, more of it will run off because it doesn't percolate into the soil. And so typically they handle that through detention ponds. So they sort of hold that property on, they hold that water on property, they retain it, and then they slow release it. And so what you effectively get is there's more water coming off the property, but it's not coming off in a rush or more of a rush than it was before. Now, at times, the applicant may have to deal with a few little off-site things in terms of concentrating flows and things like that, but to be clear, the applicant's not obligated to solve a problem that exists today. That's not fair. It's not allowed to put that burden on them. We have certainly heard about the drainage issues for a long time. You know, it's partly a TxDOT issue because the drainage runs along the road. It's partly a city issue to sort of go in and deal with. And so certainly understand residents' perspective as they see development happening, and it does sort of alter what's occurring. And certainly in the past and in times, it creates a problem or exacerbates a problem. But the applicant would not be required to fix the problem today. The way I would describe it is they can't make it worse by just letting all that water rush off. And that's a fairly common thing, so I assume they factored that into their plans, that they would do detention like you typically see.
Who's responsible for 482? Is that the state?
So TxDOT is responsible for 482. It's FM 482, as kind of just for folks in the audience, as the name would imply. So that's a farm-to-market road. It's like FM 3009, FM 1518, FM 78. So the state of Texas you know, maintains that road. The city does Hubertus, and certainly, you know, I think just again to be clear, we have issues out there today that we routinely hear about with visibility at intersections, with our roads that tie into it, Friesenhahn, for example, not being in great shape, and certainly at some point in the future, not implying it's going to happen immediately, so I want to be clear, but at some point down the road, much like we're doing with TxDOT on 1103 and 1518 south of 78, likely the city would have a contribution, and that road would be upgraded and improved going forward. But no imminent plans for that.
Yeah, and I was out there this afternoon, and I can verify that the drainage structures down there are all stopped up. They're all clogged up. And I didn't know if it was from last night or you said back in April sometime. You know, and I don't know what's wrong with TxDOT either, but somebody needs to get out there before the next rain and clean that stuff up. Any type of new construction out there is going to make things worse. And it's even obvious that when you drive by the high school, apparently it looks like their retention pond structure or whatever detention pond, their outflow is all clogged up as well. So it doesn't look good out there for drainage, and I understand what they're talking about. That's a low spot down there, and you know, more development's going to make it just worse.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. All that stuff has to be maintained. I know even today, and I'm not sure if it was related to the case tonight or people coming in, Charles has left, but got an email from him saying, hey, really need to look at some of the drainage structures out on Hubertus. Not sure it's by 482, but maybe. Public Works Director said, yeah, let us get a crew out there and take a look at it tomorrow. So you're right, this stuff has to be maintained. It's not perfect. Kind of going forward, if you will.
I don't have any questions. I've just got concerns and a statement, I guess. It's a difficult case, partially because Schertz has been looking for affordable housing. Southern Schertz is developing very quickly. We're looking for, in City Council, they speak upon affordable housing all the time. It's one of the reasons why many comp plan amendments have been many comp plan amendments have gone through for Southern Schertz. This is Northern Schertz. It's kind of a comparison between Northern Schertz and Southern Schertz development. In Southern Schertz, the comp plan amendments have been getting approved. Everything from single family to multifamily has been getting approved down there. That's where all the development is. Is this piece of property and this development just the first for Northern Schertz? Very, very possible. The thing about Northern Schertz, and what we've talked about many times between City Council and P&Z, is with the comp plan, the view of Northern Schertz is just that. It's industrial, light industrial. It's the agricultural. We've many times talked about making sure that the areas north of 35 are not developed for residential or single-family residential, that we wanted to preserve it for just that agricultural and the manufacturing light, that type of development, commercial development north of 35, keeping it away from all of the single-family residential areas that are just south of 35 in this area. So it's difficult because the precedent is already set by City Council. Development, more development, residential development in Southern Schertz. Why not start up here in Northern Schertz too? They want affordable housing. This is affordable rental housing for all of these different industrial areas that are up there. I could see if this does get approved or recommended for approval and continues on to City Council, because we're not the approval authority up here. We're just doing a recommendation to City Council. Many times in the past, they've taken our recommendation. Many times in the past, they've not taken our recommendation. So it's really kind of still up in the air no matter what we say. Is the beginning of development in Northern Schertz with this piece of property going to continue for residential, for multifamily residential, or even single-family residential? Who's to say? I mean, the future is cloudy for Northern Schertz right now with this. Is it a bad thing? There's always bad things with development, whether it's increased traffic, whether it's increased flooding potential. There's always going to be that. Even in Southern Schertz, that's what we hear about every single residential development down there, flooding and traffic. Same thing here for Northern Schertz, flooding and traffic. But again, the precedence is kind of set with Southern Schertz. So could this go through? I think it could. Could it be a good thing? I think it could. Could it be a bad thing? I think it could. It's always a big mystery when it comes to development like this. So it's a difficult choice for us up here on the commission. And really, that's all I wanted to say. I don't have a firm stance one way or the other right now, but I still want to continue to listen to my fellow commissioners and see what they have to say.
You have anything, Gordon? Judy?
I do have something else.
Good.
When you say affordable and attainable in terms of the properties, what are we talking about in terms of rent amount? I mean, it's quite different here in comparison to the Austin market. So I'm just a bit curious what if you know what that number is like.
I'll certainly let the applicant come up and answer your question. Just as a reminder, and you can come on up, but just as a reminder, one thing, as a city, we can't regulate what the price point is, so it may be interesting information to have from the city staff's perspective, whether it's market rate, whether it's high-end, whether it's affordable, whatever price point. We don't regulate that. It doesn't really kind of factor into our decision. Certainly understand that, yeah, we need a variety of housing types to serve a lot of different people for what it is. Thank you, sir.
To answer your question, ma'am, the rental rates that we are targeting would average ranging from $1,000 per month up to about $1,400 per month on a per unit basis, depending on the unit size and the number of bedrooms and so forth. And those would be for a 12-month lease. And just for comparison, if you look at a $350,000 single-family home, which would require a $40,000 to $50,000 down payment, that would be a mortgage payment of roughly $2,000 a month in comparison on a 30-year mortgage. So, thank you.
Brian, I have a question. If this unit goes in, what would be the impact on the sewer system that's going to have to support that? And does that become the city's responsibility?
Sure.
Or do we move that over to the developer?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question. And again, I think I probably confused kind of staff when we were talking about this early on and want to kind of be clear. So again, the applicant, when they come in to develop, they have to provide adequate sewer capacity to serve their project. So whether it was being treated by CCMA or a city line or Green Valley or whomever it is, NBU, the applicant is responsible for getting the sewer up there to serve their development and have there be capacity for that to occur. So that is really on them. Same thing with water. And I will kind of say this from a staff perspective, because I think what we probably did is again, I probably wasn't clear in talking to staff about it, is I think we just wanted to get a heads up. Whenever you start to move into some areas of the city that are less developed, there are challenges in getting water and sewer to the property, and we just wanted to kind of make that clear. As we've talked about a lot of times, in Texas, with the rules we operate under, particularly with roads, we can't require the developer to fix all the problems, solve all the problems. You kind of have to, it has to get worse before it sort of gets better. And so to be clear, the staff's recommendation is less about the adequacy of infrastructure or the impact of the change on infrastructure. And just to maybe be clear, so as we've talked about, the comp plan designation is ag conservation. And certainly if the zoning up there was consistent with ag conservation and we had planned and sized all of our infrastructure for ag conservation, we'd say, wait a minute, this is a problem because the lines we've put in, the lines we're planning, they're not going to be big enough to accommodate this. But this really then gets to what staff's issue is. But the reality, we didn't plan that way because the whole, and I'll see if I can get to the graphic here, or maybe not. Megan can help me. As you'll see, the whole area up around it, generally, and I say the whole area, but the vast majority of it is actually zoned M1. So much of that area up and around this property is zoned for industrial type uses. And so frankly, when we did our planning, we assumed we're going to have industrial uses and what's the traffic they're going to generate. You're fine. But as I said, so we've assumed industrial uses for that infrastructure. And frankly, if you look at what could come in, and this is probably where I start to making everybody annoyed, and maybe to your point, hopefully, you know, if we got another FedEx distribution center, the traffic coming off that would be as much, if not more, as you would get from the apartment complex. If we got, say, a frozen food packaging facility, you know, when you have the bird's eye kind of frozen vegetables, that's probably going, which would be allowed under the zoning too, like the FedEx, that's probably going to use as much water and create as much sewer as the apartment complex would. So from a staff perspective, there's not a problem to change the designation that it creates a long-term issue in terms of sizing of infrastructure. And again, with the infrastructure today, if we had somebody walk in on one of the industrial zone properties, we would have the same issue with traffic and water and sewer that they're having. So it really is a heads up. I think the staff fundamental, our position is the zoning we have up there is industrial. It's not consistent with the comp plan, but it's been granted. And typically as a community, we honor that zoning that council has given. And we are having industrial properties develop up there. And so we view this trend as going industrial. And in our minds, and I can appreciate the different view that, you know, it's becoming more and more compatible, that putting an apartment complex, putting residential in the middle of that just is not sort of a good idea. Talked with some of you before, you know, we can't control what the school districts do. Again, not ideal that they came in and they put a couple of schools in here, but really for staff, the fundamental question is, in light of the schools coming in light of, yeah, there's a need for a variety of housing types and there's a project coming in here, to what degree do we either say we're perfectly fine having industrial develop around this stuff, or we're starting to make this shift for whatever area makes sense to go residential? And again, you can certainly look up and find some. Here's the property where you have drainage ways that provide natural buffers and things like that, where you look at particular uses and they provide buffers and things like that. So it doesn't mean the whole area, but I think that's really the two issues staff would say is, are we okay if the properties around it develop industrial, having an apartment complex there? Do we think that's not the best situation and not what we want in Schertz? And then the second is, if we're okay with this, to what degree are we saying our vision for this area really needs to shift to residential, and how far out does that go? And I think some of that is to Commissioner Odom's point, and I think staff would agree, this is a tough one. It's not clean, it's not easy, there are arguments both sides. It's just a bit of a challenge, but I think fundamentally we were swayed by the fact that given all that industrial zoning up there and the fact that we are seeing development activity, our concern is putting apartments right in the middle of that. But, you know.
I might agree with you 2 years ago, but today, with the world as it is, and it costs you a gallon of gas to go across the street, we probably need to relook at what we're doing.
Sure. Don't disagree. I mean, I think everybody in council's talked about, as our median home value, new home value has gone up and up and up, it's becoming more and more of a problem. We need to find a solution, and this may be the solution. The other may be, yep, there needs to be a solution. This doesn't need to be it. So for example, when we have large planned developments come in, we typically try to push to get multifamily zoning in it, like the properties at the front of Homestead. Again, if you look across 35, we are getting applications for multifamily coming in up to backfill the golf course and some of those areas that we think are a bit more compatible as well. But not a perfect answer and not necessarily fixes it all. So yeah, this is where I think this is a tough one. Applicant makes some good points. The folks who spoke make some good points. It's just a challenge.
Would it be fair to ask, with the new comp plan, it's in work at the moment, right?
It is. The RFPs have closed. We've reached out to the firm that we're looking to select, and we'll be sitting down with them probably this week or next week to refine sort of the scope of work, then taking it to council.
So we haven't selected a firm yet?
We do. We have a firm that we're going to use. Yeah, sorry, I probably have not kept everybody in the loop on this as much as I should have. But yeah, we have a firm we're looking to go with.
I mean, just like it's mentioned, it was just mentioned about the development in our southern sector down there on 1518. When our comp plan was written, there was strong opinion throughout that we want to maintain a rural environment, both in the southern and obviously in the northern section. That's changing. People are getting old. Nobody wants to farm anymore, and those people down there are selling their property and bailing. It's just so happened that it happened first on the southern end. What's to say it's not going to happen on the northern end? And is it reasonable to think that between Austin and San Antonio, or San Antonio and Waco, that you're going to be able to maintain 1,000 acres or so of natural farmland or natural land? It's getting to be not feasible. People are going to start buying this stuff up to build, whether they build residential or they build industrial, or who knows what they're going to build, amusement park. It's going to become, land's going to become so hard to get that they're going to be offering some really silly prices to the landowners down there. So, you know, is it as feasible as it was 10 or 12 years ago when we came up with this? Maybe, but I don't know if it's going to be that way 10 years from now.
Commissioner, if I may, I agree with you, and I think Commissioner Odom's point's well taken. I think what you tend to find, and not just in Schertz, but other parts of the state particularly that's growing, is a lot of communities will designate land for agricultural or things like that because of the feeling of the folks who are out there at the time, who have been farming the land, who've had it in their families for generations, that they want to preserve that way of life. They see it being preserved. And frankly, what happens in the face of the rapid growth that we've got, that just starts to change. It chips away at it. It's no longer what it was. People start aging out. Our economies change. You can't necessarily earn a living as easily farming land. And so, yeah, I don't doubt that. It will not surprise me that we have some area of our plan that we designated for agricultural conservation this next update. It'll be smaller than we have now, and I don't doubt that within about 10 years after that, we'll likely start seeing pressures chip away and have to face the same thing. And that's really what I think here. So is this particular area viable as ag conservation? I don't think it is. That's not what staff's arguing. What staff is simply saying is that given the industrial zoning that we've got, that's what we're struggling with, is that was kind of the path forward. Now again, we talked about this in the sector plan, question is how much industrial zoning is really viable? How long is it going to take to develop, and how long are we willing to kind of wait for that to develop, I think is part of the struggle there. That's really for us. But yeah, if I were to bet, I think this area is either going to go industrial or some kind of residential in part on it. And I think, you know, it's interesting that we've seen with a few of the cases that have come beforehand, you've had a number of cases, the property over here across Schwabwood that came in for industrial designation for Southern Tire to move in, the IDV property that's come in, the plats you've had for this tract of land for industrial, the landscape place on FM 482, you know, so yeah, I don't think it's going to stay ag conservation. But likely, we'll have some designation on the comp plan update, and then for those of us who are around, we'll, down the road at some point, start seeing that kind of chip away at, I think.
Just taking a look at it too, I mean, it almost looks like when we use I-35 right now, southern portion being residential, northern portion being industrial, you can almost move that over to 482. Northern portion of 482, I could see that beginning to develop with this development, residential.
Yeah.
More affordable housing north of, on the northern side of 482, in front of, or around the school, that type of thing, becoming, instead of it is a rural school right now, becoming more of a residential type of school. And then the industrial pretty much being locked in between 482 and I-35, along with the schools. So I could see that starting to develop if this is the first cog in that wheel. It's very, very possible we could see that begin to develop. Somebody's got to be the first.
It is a tough one.
Somebody's got to be
Not a
the
right or wrong
first. Is
answer.
this going to be the first?
All right, well, this is exactly the same process that we've gone through with Southern Schertz, where the long-term property owners don't want to see development, and they have some legitimate concerns. The problem with infrastructure, and Mr. James hit the nail right on the head, that's a state highway. And you know, knowing TxDOT's history, they're not going to do a thing to 482 until we see some development up there. And I don't know what that is, whether that's residential. But 482, I doubt it's even on their radar right now. You know, we're just now getting 1518 from 78 to I-10 redone. And I think even when they get done with it, it's not going to be adequate, but you know, that's the way TxDOT works. As far as the zoning that's up there, that predated the comp plan. And the city has a policy, we don't proactively rezone properties. I understand, having been around for the process, and part of the process, the desire was to keep Northern Schertz from turning into one big subdivision. And the way to do that was with lower density residential, either agricultural or what we call estate, develop large lots. But as you know, right now with the zoning that's in place, it's not in conformance with the comp plan, and I don't see the city wanting to do any action to change that. As far as the two schools up there, I took a quick look at our permitted use table just to make sure I had remembered correctly, and schools are a permitted use in any zoning district. So even if that corner where Danville is, I don't remember what the zoning is up there, but schools permitted. They didn't have to ask. And as far as the, not going to come up with the word, but you know, Kamau, the school district chose to build that school there, and they're choosing to build the elementary school there, knowing what's around it, okay? And if you've never seen a school surrounded by industrial on your drive back to Austentide as you go through New Braunfels, look over on the right and see where Canyon High School's at, okay? Maybe that's an anomaly, but it does happen. You know, my biggest problem here is I have the same problem in Southern Schertz. The comprehensive land use plan and the sector plan were consensus documents. They were built by the community. It reflects the community's desire of what they want the city to look like. And what we're seeing now is, I don't disagree that things have changed. But I am still reluctant to amend a consensus document for an individual. It just doesn't seem right. No doubt in my mind, I agree with Mr. James, when the new comp plan comes in, things are going to look differently. We talk about, and you know, some of the same arguments we're getting, but Southern Schertz, even though they have some flooding issues, is relatively flat. It's not like that, the part of the city where you folks live, okay? And in my head, what would be better in terms of controlling runoff? A single-family residential subdivision with limited to, what's impervious cover? How much? 50% versus, I mean, we had the picture up here of Danville Middle School. Look at all that, how much ground that building and that parking lot covered up. So imagine, as Mr. James said, FedEx or Amazon or somebody putting another big warehouse up there. So in terms of trying to control environmental issues like that, what's a better use? Well, I would think residential. But The big problem you're facing today is the fact that this is not just a small leap from the comp plan. This is a huge jump in what we want, what you're asking to use the land for. And again, I don't like the tail wagging the dog. I really don't. This is our city, and it should develop the way we want it to develop, not the way the developers want it, regardless of market forces. Okay? Sure, we can go back 10 years or so when we did it, and market forces were different. Well, you know what? 10 years from now, they're going to be different again. And anyway, it's a tough nut. It really is. Trying to figure out what the best use, and right now with the zoning up there, it's not even close to what we thought we wanted to see up there. But until we change it, we're kind of stuck with what it is. And I'm not sure, because I'm not intimately familiar with all these businesses up there, but I seem to think most of them were already there, or they've, we haven't seen the Amazons and the FedExes and the Ciscos want to run up there and put in new plants. It's mostly these small, that one there you've got is what? See?
So you'll have Casa Verde Farms, which is a plant nursery, and then you will have the Texas Family Plumbing Company, the Texas Cutting and Core, and then you will have Intercoastal Contractors as well.
And how long have they been there? Okay. Anyway, so commissioners, what we're faced with is another one of those dilemmas where, for whatever reason, the comp plan hasn't stayed. We haven't kept the comp plan current, and we've heard some input from the area of the people that live up there. But what we're looking for tonight is for us to make a recommendation to City Council to either approve or deny this amendment to the sector plan for Northern Schertz.
Mr. Chairman, I make a recommendation to City Council to consider approval of ZC 2022-008.
Can I have a motion to recommend approval from Commissioner Goldick? Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right. I'm going to give that to Commissioner Odom.
And is this 08 or 10?
This is 010.
Yeah, I didn't catch that either. Thank you. Do you want to amend that motion?
Start over. Yes,
Yeah, because I honestly didn't hear exactly what you said. What did you hear over there?
I heard 10.
Okay, so would you like to amend that?
22-010.
And your second still stands, Mr. Odom?
Yes, I still second.
Okay. Thank you, appreciate that catch. Okay, any further discussion? Call for the vote.
Aye.
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 And I am going to vote nay, because I, again, don't think we should amend a consensus document for an individual. So that is 4 ayes, 1 nay, and unless I'm mistaken, that motion passes, correct? All right. Okay, moving on to item 5B, ZC 2022-008, hold a public hearing, consider and make a recommendation on a request to rezone approximately 22 acres of land to apartment/multifamily residential district R4 generally located 1,100 feet west of the intersection of FM 482 and Hubertus Road, also known as Comal County property. Identification numbers 401-272-273, 75375, 75237, 75246, City of Schertz, Comal County, Texas. Megan.
Good evening, Commission. This is for ZC 2022-008, FM 42 rezoning, Megan Harrison, planner. So this will be a little bit of kind of what we have already seen, but a little bit brief as well. So the properties are outlined in green that are going through the rezoning request from the current zoning of agricultural district and manufacturing light to apartment multifamily. The public hearing notices were mailed out on May 13th, 2022. We did receive 2 responses in favor for the rezoning request. Here is the here's the zoning exhibit in front of you. Again, it is showing that the current properties here are the agricultural district, and the 3 here are the manufacturing light. Given the recent approval, we understand that staff did make the recommendation in the staff report for denial of the request to rezone the property. However, given the motion that the commission just made to approve the comprehensive land use plan, staff is going to staff is going to support the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission on this item. Therefore, that is all that staff has. The applicant is here to provide a presentation as well.
All right, thank you. Ms. Bancroft, you have anything to add to this one? Sure, come on up.
Thank you again to the commission. Again, Chris Bancroft, 1111 6th Street, Austin, Texas. Mr. Outlaw, I very much appreciate your concerns and understand where you're coming from, and they're noted, and I'll address some of those in a moment. Again, as I mentioned earlier, our goal is to build high-quality garden-style apartments at attainable rents for the City of Schertz. I'd like to address 4 important issues from the staff report and from our own analysis. Those include infrastructure, aesthetics, traffic, and affordability. As far as infrastructure is concerned, we're well aware and knew this for some time prior to this meeting, that we'd be obligated to extend wastewater service to the area and have factored that into our analysis. We're also aware that water service is currently with Green Valley SUD. We've already engaged them for a feasibility study and understand our options there. Drainage is something we're also looking closely at and would absolutely create solutions for. As you can see in our land plan, we have a retention pond, Mr. James noted, in the northern corner, already planned out and thought based on the drainage situation there. We're willing to fund all the necessary infrastructure improvements, cost participate with the city where it's appropriate. Not only for our project, but for our neighbors and for all the future growth in this area. Number 2 is aesthetics. The site has high visibility from the road, and we want the project to be something that we're proud of and the city and community can be proud of. We're proposing garden-style apartments, which are 3-story buildings with a relatively low-density footprint, roughly 20 to 30 units per building with ample green space, family-oriented amenities, and thoughtful architecture to complement the area. Traffic, which we touched on briefly, we're well aware of the truck traffic along 482. We're proactively working with TxDOT and our civil engineers to ensure that this future development would have all of the appropriate traffic controls in place, with safety and mobility as primary goals. We're also taking into consideration the traffic and safety needs of the adjacent schools. And again, we're willing to fund those roadway improvements. And then number 4 is affordability. As we talked about, Schertz has a rapidly growing workforce that needs rental housing. Schertz is not immune to the affordability crisis we're seeing all across Central Texas. And again, as I mentioned earlier, interest rates only serve to make that worse. I think we talked about all this earlier, and so I won't reiterate some of the things that were already said, but our goal is to provide a solution to this by, again, providing rental housing and flexible housing options for the community. I talked about attainable housing, what that meant earlier as far as the rental rates, ranging from $1,000 a month up to about $1,400 a month, depending on the unit size. And so we want to make something that people can be happy with and provide, again, diversity of housing for the area. The one thing that we can't do is any of the things that I just mentioned without the proper zoning. That's first and foremost why we're here tonight. I want to say thank you to the Planning Commission for your recommendation to approve our comp plan amendment. That's, of course, the first step in the rezoning process, and I very much appreciate it. Your support and recommendation goes a long ways. If the commission does approve our zoning tonight, the fact remains that we still need to build all of the appropriate infrastructure before we can even begin to think about starting a project. I know that these are concerns by the planning department, and we're prepared to address them and handle them. There are many more steps in future applications we need to pursue before we could ever start moving dirt. The bottom line is we need the zoning in place to secure financing for the infrastructure and for the project itself. With the zoning in place, we can move forward with the project with confidence. We would like to partner with the city of Schertz and our neighbors to make sure this ends up being a success for the community and for the neighbors. Zoning is merely the first step in that process. Your recommendation still has to move forward to council, and a zoning change request should be based on the market demand and compatibility of land uses, and not the current land use plan, which in our opinion is out of date. An appropriately zoned property or development in the same location would still have the same infrastructure needs and concerns to serve the future growth in this area. I very much hope the commission will reconsider our request for zoning, actually consider the request for zoning, and forward a recommendation for approval to City Council. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, for your consideration tonight, and I appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bancroft. Okay, this again is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to address the commission on this topic is welcome to step forward to the microphone. Sure. That's all right. It's a clock's reset. Go right ahead. But once again, name.
By the way, comment.
Once again, name and address, please.
I'm sorry?
Name and address, please.
Lee Edwards, 311 Hunters Creek Drive, New Braunfels, Texas. By the way, Comel Independent at the high school has acquired 2 of their industrial neighbors. So they've got a big appetite. The similar project that we're talking about, that it's at Goodwin and Ryan and New Braunfels, the way it's shaped out is that in meeting with the planning department and the engineering department, drainage can be shifted or changed to mitigate the issues that are running into the 482 intersection. They're amenable to make that change. And the one on Orion had a sheeting factor, so a new design was put in to catch the whole sheet, not focus it and try to remove it. So that can be helpful with their engineers. And so this will work out really well. And by the way, C1, C2, and retail doesn't like this intersection just because it's not where they pick up the traffic. Traffic, as you know, retail gets its own mind, and if it doesn't drive that way, it ain't going to it, you know? So HEB can move traffic, but nobody else. So.
Anyone else? No, I'm just to see if there's anybody else. Give them one more chance. Sure, come on up. Just please name and address for the record.
Amanda Muchigamba, 7608 FM 482. So I know we had a lot of naysayers before. There's actually 5 families that it's not just affecting one family it's not one family that's selling. There's 5 of us that have grown together. For us, part of the reason is all these things that they said that were negative is the reason kind of we want to get out of that area. And as far as the drainage and all those things, we are selling. I mean, even if it's not to an apartment complex, like they said, FedEx or whatever, these other places that have approached us. So it's not a matter of it's just what's going to go there. Because as far as the whole, it's kind of pretty much a whole family. My brother, my mother, my aunt is the neighboring areas. So we are committed to selling, and it's just a matter of what's going to be approved to go there, pretty much. So I understand the neighbors, and I do feel badly that, they don't want that there. I wouldn't want that there either, but at the end of the day, something is going to go there. We are very committed to selling, and approached by this is the most greenage to confront us. So I feel like it's the best option because it allows to have more land rather than a big old concrete slab of FedEx or any of those other kind of industrial things. So it kind of goes towards what you're wanting to maintain the integrity of some of the greenery and some of the land rather than just big old parking lots and big old slabs. And that is it on my piece.
All right, thank you very much. Anyone else? One more time. No? All right, we'll close the public input portion of the hearing. Commissioners?
All right, one thing that we didn't discuss or talk about in the previous case that applies to this one too is individual property owner rights. It's extremely important in Texas, the individual property owner rights. It's their property. They have the right to do with their property as they see fit. And as a city, it's very, very hard for us to deny that. So we definitely take that into consideration as well. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we recommend approval of ZC 2022-008 to the City Council.
I second.
All right. A motion to approve from Commissioner Odom, or recommend approval from Commissioner Odom, and a second for Commissioner Goldick. Anyone else have anything? I do have some questions, and anyone want to go first?
Yeah, I'll just have a couple of comments. One thing I struggle with up here is apartment complexes have come before this commission and city council several times in the last 8 or 10 years, four or five, if I remember correctly. And all of them have been shot down for one particular reason or another. And a lot of them because they're just in the wrong location, just in the wrong spot. This I find is kind of in some ways an odd place for an apartment complex because there's no stores close by. There's a bank and a credit union, and then the schools. But there's not a whole lot of retail in this area. But other than that, this might be one of the better locations to put an apartment complex than the ones we've had before. There's no residential around there, so there's people on the 3rd floor of an apartment complex are not going to be spying into somebody's backyard. That's a good thing. So if we're going to want some apartments in the city of Schertz, more than what we have now, and I think City Council is going to go for this, I don't think this is a bad idea.
Anyone else? Mr. Bancroft, if you don't mind, I've just got a couple questions on your drawing here. Number one, I really wish you'd shown this to us in the previous. I don't know that it would have changed my mind, but when the discussion was all around drainage and impervious, something like this certainly would have been of use. I wanted to ask you, the contour lines, are those up or down?
Those drain to the north, so they would go down towards the north.
Okay, so...
towards that retention pond.
Yeah. Okay, so the high point over here to the left of that's all coming down into your property, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you may have said it and I missed it, but the big question here is sewage. And what do you guys have planned for that?
So our preliminary plan, and again, zoning is pending much of the work we need to do.
Sure, I understand.
But Abbey Road is where we understand the connection would be to the northeast. And we would need to bring in sewer service, wastewater service from that direction to the property. We'd have to undergo a wastewater capacity study to understand the sizing that would be required. But that is one option. There's also, I'm aware of a connection right across the street. I don't know if the capacity is sufficient, but right there on the hard corner of Hubertus and 482.
All right. Thank you.
Sir.
So Commissioner Odom, and I don't know, maybe the whole thing, maybe we don't really need to specify it, that your recommendation for approval, is that contingent upon council approving the amendment? Or do we really even need to go there?
I think this is a standalone issue.
Commissioner Allen, if you maybe want to phrase the question
Well, here's where my little brain is in overdrive right now. Typically, we judge zoning change requests based on the comprehensive plan. And so that we try to keep any new zoning consistent with that plan. Well, if council approves the amendment, then this zoning request would be in accordance with the comp plan, but you know, I guess it's a non-issue because, you know, just like council sorted out, they you know, they'll have to deal with it when they get it. All right?
I think I just get it. What will happen if council disapproves the comp plan change? Will this just go away?
Oh.
Or if they say no, what happens to this if we approve it?
So if P&Z makes a recommendation of approval to City Council will hear the two requests at this, just how P&Z did. They will make the recommendation or they will make the approval or denial of the comp plan amendment, and if the comp plan amendment is denied, then essentially the zone change, again, is not in conformance with the comp plan. Therefore, the zone change.
They would still hear the zoning change, but theoretically, they would recognize that they just disapproved the amendment, so why approve the?
Yeah, it's much like the commission here. The commission just approved this comp plan.
Right.
Changed it to allow multi-family.
Right.
Not sure why.
Okay.
Recommend denial. I think the same thing of council.
Okay.
The comp plan,
Are they independent or are they joined together?
they're technically independent separate items.
Okay.
But again, not sure what the rationale would be.
Yeah.
We're going to approve this comp plan amendment to allow multifamily.
Right.
And then 2 minutes later say, we decided not to allow multifamily.
Yeah. Well, I'm more
Separate items.
okay. That's kind of what I said. We'll let them sort it out. All right. Thank you.
So the motion is good then?
Yeah, I think so. So what we have is a motion to recommend approval of ZC 2022-008. Any further discussion or questions? Did I muddle it up enough for everybody? I'll call for the vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. Kind of like I just did, right? All right. So that recommendation will go to City Council. And Mr. Bancroft, thank you for your input, and any of the locals that are still here, we appreciate you coming, and we do like your input, so thank you. All right, moving on to item 6, items for individual consideration. 6A, PC 2022-022, consider and act upon a request for approval of a preliminary plat of the Crossvine Module 3B Unit 1 subdivision, an approximately 35.79 acre tract of land establishing 133 single-family residential lots generally located 1,750 feet from the intersection of Wersigine Road and FM 1518, City of Schertz, Bexar County, Texas. Megan?
Good evening, Commission. This is for PC 2022-022, Crossvine Module 3B Unit 1 preliminary plat. So here is the property outlined in green. This is FM 1518, Wersigine, and Trainer Hale Road, just as another point of reference. The preliminary plat is composed of 4 sheets, so we'll kind of, I'll go through them. But the plat is comprised of a 35.79 acre tract of land that is establishing 133 single-family residential lots. The property, we can go back to this one real quick. The property is taking 2 points of access through Chalk Trace, which is going to be accessed through Module 3A, Unit 1. And then the second point of access is going to be through Heartvine, which is connected to FM 1518. So here is the second page of the preliminary plat. And then the third page, the property will be serviced by water and sewer through an 8-inch line by the city of Schertz. The preliminary plat has been reviewed by the city engineer for the drainage. It has also been reviewed by the engineering, planning, public works, and fire departments with no objections. Therefore, staff is making a recommendation of approval of the Crossfire Module 3B Unit 1 preliminary plat. The applicant is here in case there are any questions.
All right, thank you, Megan. Commissioners? I have a request. It'd be nice, you know, if I could see the whole thing so that I can see where all the streets go instead of trying to, now this one goes up here and, yeah, right, okay. Anyway, anybody? I'm sorry, it's the old fire marshal in me. I can't get by it. All right, so commissioners, this is our authority to approve or deny.
I'm trying to go faster than the computer, but the computer
Oh,
is...
it don't, yeah.
But for next time, Mr. Outlaw, I'll make sure to include a overall concept plan that shows how all of these interact with each other.
Go ahead.
Anyone want to make that motion?
I move that we approve PC 2022-022, the preliminary plat for Crossvine Model 3B Unit 1. Module 3B Unit 1.
A second.
Okay, I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Broad and a second from Commissioner Ray. Any further discussion? Call for the vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. 5 ayes, none opposed. That motion passes, and you waited all this time just for, yeah. But thank you. And once again, appreciate the comments about Chris. Thank you. All right, item number 7, requests and announcements. Request by commissioners to place items on a future planning and zoning agenda. Anyone? Yes? No? Okay. Announcements by commissioners. Anyone?
I do have one announcement.
Go ahead, sir.
Over the past 2 years, I've enjoyed it and have been honored to serve on the Planning and Zoning Commission, first as an alternate and then as a primary member. I've learned valuable lessons about Schertz planning and development, and I truly appreciate the opportunity to serve this great community that we have. Regrettably, due to personal reasons, I am unable to dedicate the time and the effort to this important position and the time and the effort that it deserves. So effective at the end of this month, I'll be resigning my position as a regular member on the Schertz Planning and Zoning Commission. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Chairman Outlaw and all the other commissioners for their service to our community and for helping guide me through the intricate process of city planning and zoning, and at times the controversial issues that this commission has faced. I would like to also recognize the outstanding work of the City Planning and Zoning Division, in particular Senior Planner Emily Delgado, City Planner Megan Harrison, and Administrative Assistant Tiffany Danhoff. These ladies are an asset to the city, and I admire their hard work and their dedication to smart community development and to the city of Schertz. Lastly, I would also like to recognize and thank our City Secretary, Brenda Dennis, and our Assistant City Manager, Brian James, for their hard work and the long hours that they have dedicated to the city of Schertz and to its citizens. I do look forward to one day, hopefully, coming back to this commission and dedicating myself again to serving this great city of Schertz. Thank you for the time, Chairman Outlaw.
Well, thank you, sir. I'm going to miss you, and hopefully it's just temporary. Moving on, announcements by city staff.
Hello, it's me again. It's for the site plans that were administratively approved by staff. The first one is the Savannah Drive commercial site plan at Savannah Drive and Schertz Parkway for a proposed 360-foot square foot coffee shop. The next one is the Hubertus Retail Site Plan. This is at 1103 and I-35. If you think of like CVS, McDonald's, a gas station, that kind of hard corner, this property is being developed as a coffee shop. The Harrell Subdivision Site Plan, Hubertus Road, FM 42, the area that we've been discussing primarily tonight. This is the Colma ISD Elementary School, 96,000 square foot plus elementary school. That is all that I have.
All right. Yes. After the meeting, we can all go over and look at the site plans, okay?
Correct.
Unfortunately, the way this whole thing is structured, they can show them to us, but we can't talk about them. We'll have to figure out how to change that someday. All right. What else do we have, Emily?
Good evening, Commission. I'd like to introduce you to William Willingham. He is our planning intern for the summer, so in the next couple of meetings, you may see William give a planning presentation. I just wanted to introduce him and give him a chance to maybe say a few words to the Commission if you'd like.
Howdy. Are any Aggies here? I just have to check first. No Aggies. I'm a little disappointed. That's okay. Howdy, my name's William. I'm a planning intern here with the City of Schertz. They're so gracious to take me on, and I really appreciate that. Just some background about me. I'm a resident of San Antonio. That's where my family's from. That's where I grew up. I live like on 1604 in Valverde, that area. I did my undergrad at Texas A&M also, so I'm twice educated there now. My undergrad was in urban planning, and now I'm studying public administration. So I will be done next year, so maybe I'll look for a job here and become a planner. We'll see, I don't know, but yes, so that's me. Nice to meet you.
Welcome to planning and zoning, okay? I'm surprised I didn't throw you into the lion's den tonight, so. Okay. All righty, thank you, welcome. And of course, item 8 is information provided on current status of some of the projects that have come through planning and zoning and gone to City Council. Item number 9, there being no further business, this meeting's adjourned.